Shalom, brothers and sisters, and I am Rastavita. I'm just letting you know now that I'm not feeling 100% and I am recovering from a really bad cough. But I've got my water here, so just bear with me. As the Ruach HaKodesh was giving me a download and a fresh revelation, this is something that I've known for a while, but he just prompted me to release it today, to put it together and release it. And I was like, Adonai, I'm still recovering from a really bad cough and things like that. And he was just saying, just power through and just do what you need to, but your obedience is key. And so here we are. I'm talking about how did Yeshua fulfill the 40 days in comparison to the 40 years of the Hebrew Israelites? How did Yeshua fulfill the covenant of the Hebrew Israelites across 40 years in reflection what he went through against the enemy in 40 days? And so what I'm going to release to you and let you know is how did Yeshua do this? And as you know that I've done a part 1, how did Yeshua fulfill the covenant? Well, consider this part 2. So here we go. The Hebrew Israelites, just a background, the 40 years that they were saved from Egypt and made their way to the promised land, there was 42 pit stops. So they did 40 years, but 42 pit stops. 40 in Hebrew means trials and tribulations. 42 in Hebrew means arrival at the promised land. Now, Yeshua, when the Ruach HaKodesh descended upon him and he went into the wilderness, he was there for 40 days, but obviously he made 42 pit stops as well. Yeshua had to, how do I say, walk out and fulfill exactly what everybody in the Bible did to show that he fulfilled the law and how he perfected what happened. And, you know, some people say, oh, but he did 40 pit stops. That's not true. If the Hebrew Israelites did 42 pit stops in 40 years, let's count the pit stop of when Yeshua walked into the wilderness, pit stop 1, and when he left the wilderness, that would be the 42nd. And so he had to go through the exact same thing for the exact same reflection, but he just went through it in a perfect way. And obviously it was quicker. 40 days, 40 years, you get the drift. So I have to say that in advance. Now, the people I've been looking around on social media, I'm not a big fan of it, have been saying that Yeshua did 40 pit stops, 41, the Hebrew Israelites made 40 pit stops. That is not true. And whoever is speaking and preaching is not picking up their Bible correctly. It is written loud and clear. 42 pit stops in 40 years that the Hebrew Israelites went through when Moshe, or Moses in English, led the Hebrew Israelites through the wilderness. When Yeshua went into the wilderness, he went through 40 days to equal the 40 years, but he too had to make 42 pit stops. So even though he was there for 40 days, like I said, count when he walked into the wilderness as the first pit stop and when he left the wilderness as the 42nd pit stop, because 42 means arrival at the promised land. I have to say that in advance. And I'm not going to read all the Bible scriptures once again, as I usually do. I will make note of it in the comments section as well. So if you want to go read further in more detail, but I will acknowledge it and make note of it as we go ahead and discuss it. So 42 pit stops in 40 days of wilderness. So we know that the covenant of the forefathers, the main patriarchs that is mentioned that Yeshua perfected, and as you can see, if you go to part 1, and I've been talking throughout my videos, is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There is 5 levels, and go to my video about the grace, the levels of grace. You have Adam, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Yeshua is the image of Israel on the fifth level. But Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob seem to be the main patriarchs. And I'll go through why. Abraham is the mind, Isaac is the heart, and Jacob is the soul. Yeshua perfected all of that spiritually in the mind, heart, body, soul, and spirit realm. Okay? The first 14 days is what Abraham went through. The first temptation that Yeshua went through is we'll go to Matthew 4, and I'll make note of it. Matthew 4, this is where Yeshua gets tempted by the enemy. The whole story is if you want to read it. The first temptation. Yeshua said to the enemy, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Adonai." This is the mind temple. Abraham was tested in his mindset to leave his forefathers and take a journey and take Adonai's hand of experience. This is like the realization of spiritual food and faith over the physical. When Abraham left his forefathers, he had to move in faith, believing the spiritual over the physical. So leaving the physical in order to enter the spiritual. And you can read through the Bible when Adonai says to Abraham, "Look at the stars and you're going to be like this." And he's telling him things outside that his mind cannot comprehend. But nonetheless, Abraham moves in faith and believing. So the first temptation that Yeshua goes through was to challenge the mindset. And he overcame it because 14 in Hebrew means priesthood. Now, since Yeshua mastered kingship and priesthood, he mastered the priesthood of the covenant of the forefathers. So just like Abraham was separated from his forefathers, I've got my notes here so I don't miss out on anything as usual, to walk in faith and believing Adonai in righteousness and provision. The food that the enemy wanted to give of the stones becoming bread would have been poison, as the enemy tried to poison Adam with a corrupted food, Adam and Eve were given a fruit, some sort of food that was obviously poisoned and toxic. Abraham could not have a toxic mindset, and Yeshua perfected and conquered the toxicity of the enemy of trying to pollute and corrupt the fruit of the mindset. So this was a temptation, obviously, from the enemy of trying to corrupt his mindset. Adonai had Abraham focused on Adonai and the spiritual realm outside the physical realm, so his mind would not be corrupted like his forefathers. Terah, Abraham's father, was an idolater and a murderer. And you can find this in the book of Jasher and the book of Jubilees. It actually goes further in detail of Terah in more detail. So the first 14 days, or the first 14 stops of the Hebrew Israelites, they were struggling mentally. So let's put it together. The Hebrew Israelites, the first 14 pit stops that they make challenge their mindset. Abraham had to walk in faith above their forefathers' mindset, completely leaving it, detaching from it. But Yeshua conquered and perfected the mindset. And this was all done in the wilderness. So the first 14, I'm going to repeat that. So the first 14 pit stops of the Hebrew Israelites challenged their mindset. And you can go back and read when Moshe takes them through the wilderness of the types of tests and trials and tribulations that they go through. The first 14 challenged their mindset, their belief, the fear, the hatred, the complaints. And it was the same murderous mindset of Abraham's forefathers that had corrupted mindsets, but Yeshua came and conquered all of that by not eating the same fruit that the forefathers did, whether it be the Hebrew Israelites or, Abraham did not eat that fruit. He was detaching himself, but Yeshua completed it, if that makes sense. The second temptation is represented by Isaac's test, and that is the heart. So as you know through the videos that I've been doing, there's 3 temples, and the Ruach HaKodesh has been downloading major revelations each time to expand on the knowledge, revelation, confirmations, and informations of the mind, heart, and soul. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the 3 temptations. And there's this thing of the 3 parts, Adonai, Yeshua, the Ruach HaKodesh, the physical, emotional, and the spiritual, detaching to the spiritual. So it's like the 5 levels of grace detach themselves as they go up the ladder to be perfected in glory. Second temptation, Yeshua said, "It is written," again in Matthew 4, "You shall not tempt Adonai Elohim." Yeshua was tested to not be swayed to give up the heart and to throw himself off the pinnacle of the temple. But Yeshua kept his heart strong in devotion and love for his Father. And so the next 14 steps that the Hebrew Israelites went through challenged their heart. And so like Isaac, they had to have a circumcised heart to have a devoted heart. And Yeshua kept his heart, I'm trying to explain it in a way. Yeshua kept his heart in the heavenly realm, whereas the people's hearts in the Hebrew Israelites were led astray. Isaac's heart was circumcised from depending on the kingdoms. Was it the kingdom of the world or was it the kingdom of Adonai? And Yeshua perfected that by glorifying and completing the heart circumcision, the love, the complete, full wholeheartedness towards his heavenly Father. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob went through tests. Do they love Adonai? And they failed, but they completed it. And Adonai was showing that yes, they failed, but how they overcame that. And Yeshua just fulfills that, because they all lead to Yeshua at the end of the day. The word all leads up to Yeshua with everything. The whole first covenant leads up to Yeshua. And as we enter the second covenant, Yeshua is right there in the book of Matthew when he is first introduced. But he said, "I'm from the beginning of time." So he's already gone through it spiritually and physically to make the way for the people from the realm of earth, the physical realm, and the heavenly realm, the spiritual realm, and the ladder that's in between, going from physical to spiritual up to heaven. Yeshua had an immortal heart, and Isaac had to keep his heart open. Isaac went through many challenges of the heart, and he had to keep his heart open to the ways of Adonai. The Hebrew Israelites failed many times of being led astray in the moments of their hearts. But Yeshua kept his heart devoted to Adonai. He kept his love. He kept his heart pure. It wasn't corrupted or polluted in any way. Excuse me. So Adonai challenged the heart of the Hebrews with Moshe. Isaac switched kingdoms, circumcised his heart to switch kingdoms, but Yeshua fulfilled it in completion between heaven and earth. Yeshua did not allow the enemy to destroy the first temple of the mind and the second temple of the heart, to be poisoned, corrupted, or hijacked by the enemy in any way. Not even agreement. Yeshua did not make a covenant. So Yeshua did not give the enemy a foothold whatsoever. Third temptation. This is represented Jacob, the soul, which is the belly area. That's the spiritual realm. That's how do we know? Because Jonah was spat out from the belly of the whale. The spiritual realm is on a human being is in the belly area. The soul. Yeshua said, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship Adonai Elohim, and him only you shall serve." The enemy tried to tempt Yeshua to fail in his soul. Now remember, Jacob means deceiver. He had to be spiritually circumcised to be Israel. Jacob failed in his soul, and he realized that, and he had to prove himself worthy to show that he wasn't like that spiritually anymore. But the last 14 pit stops of the Hebrew Israelites were testing their soul in order to be spiritually circumcised. So the first 14 pit stops that the Hebrew Israelites took in the wilderness was the mind, represented by Abraham, but it was conquered by the first temptation of Yeshua. The next 14 was Isaac, the heart. They were challenged in the heart. They were tested in the heart, the Hebrew Israelites. But it was to, where does their heart lie in kingdom? Was it earth or heaven? And that was completed by the second temptation. It was fulfilled perfectly by Yeshua. So now we're up to the third one, the soul. The last 14 pit stops before entering the promised land, they were spiritually tested to see where their soul was. Were they who they said they were? And, Jacob wrestled with Archangel Peniel, which means pineal gland. And that is the center in connection of the spiritual realm of the spiritual temple in the belly, because that's the middle pillar of what Adonai, how he wants all his people to be aligned, like a steady tree of life. And so the enemy tried to tempt Yeshua to fail in his soul by serving the wrong realm. It was either earth or heaven. Earth or heaven's purposes, Egypt or the promised land. And even though the Hebrew Israelites were so close and spent many years in the wilderness, some of them still wanted to go back to Egypt. They wanted to settle before the promised land. They spiritually wouldn't die completely to themselves in truly deciding which spiritual realm in their soul did they really love him? Did they really love Adonai? And Adonai was testing them. Are they who they say they are? Do you really love me with all your mind, all your heart, all your strength, all in your soul? Do you love me? And so, Yeshua perfected all of that. He said, remember what he said, worship Adonai Elohim, and him only you shall serve. Yeshua made the decision, like how Jacob switching to Israel in the perfected image of Yeshua, which is Israel spiritually and physically, it was heaven and serving Adonai only. It was not entertaining anything got to do with the enemy, and deciding spiritually once and for all that is who I serve. That is the realm I serve. Because people that serve in the earth are spiritually dead. We know who the God of this world is. And so when we serve heaven's purposes, we have decided we are serving Adonai, him, and worship him only. We are glorifying him. We are building his kingdom. We are not building our own kingdoms. We are building his kingdom. And it doesn't matter if we have businesses and things like that. It is for his honor, his glory. Something got to do with him. It's bringing that righteousness of the kingdom of heaven and its purposes only. And not serving Pharaoh in any way, not serving the enemy in any way. No matter what type of kingdom he tries to throw to the people, we will be tested in the wilderness at that stage right before the promised land. Who do we decide to pledge our allegiance to? And so when the people pick what realm they truly serve, it determines either the enemy or the deity of that realm. Like I said, it's either the enemy or Adonai once and for all. Jacob decided that when he was wrestling with that angel, he wanted that blessing from Adonai. He wanted to serve Adonai. And when Adonai set him straight, when he passed the wrestling test, it made him limp. And so even though it made him walk physically crooked, but he was walking spiritually straight. So Yeshua completed the soul, the temple of the soul, by challenging, but by perfecting it. And you can see where the Hebrew Israelites in the last 14 pit stops in their journey with Moshe in the wilderness, that many of them die. They manifest in their soul with, anger and who their allegiance is, and coming against Moshe full force. They were arguing and fighting what they wanted to do, what they believed, and they were not completely submitting or surrendering to the ways. Jacob surrendered, became Israel. Yeshua just surrendered himself, and he said, what did he say? Let's read it exact. Away with you, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship Adonai Elohim, and him only you shall serve. Yeshua knew the enemy was a liar, deceiver, and would have destroyed him if he gave the enemy a foothold. So Yeshua had to conquer that righteousness spirit. Jacob could not be a deceiver anymore and had to have a right spirit. The Hebrew Israelites could not have a foul spirit, but to enter the promised land had to have a righteous spirit. Yeshua perfected the righteousness of the mind, the heart, and the soul in the spiritual. Excuse me. And so we too are not to give the enemy a foothold. Excuse me. Praise Yeshua. We just declare healing in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. I'm going to be making note of these Bible scriptures, but I will mention them. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 to 7. Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 to 40. Mark chapter 12, verses 30 to 31. Luke 10, 27. They all say the same thing across those four in the first covenant and the second covenant. It's loving Adonai with all your heart, soul, and strength. And so Adonai tests us, So Adonai tests us. Do we really love him with everything we've got, with our thoughts, in the mindset, like Abraham? Do we really love him with our heart, like Isaac? And do we love, Adonai with our soul, like Jacob, in order to be the image of the glorified image of Yeshua, which is Israel? And so Yeshua didn't want to build anything for the enemy. He wanted to build for Adonai. Now, we have to be the same. And so Yeshua completed all tests of the forefathers in the wilderness through the temptations that he faced the enemy himself, to clear that way and make that way for us and anyone that wants to walk, believe, and serve. Yeshua succeeded and fulfilled and purified the covenant, of course, with his blood of the forefathers, and cleared the way by example and how to escape the enemy. A lot of people that are trapped by the enemy don't realize they're under that influence or made some sort of agreement and covenant. But when we get back to the spiritual truth and the reality of the words of the spiritual realm, we have a higher revelation and how to escape from the enemy. And how do we do that? The same way Yeshua did. We just plow through quoting the word and imitate his behavior and take on his strength as we submit to him, surrender to him, but at the same time follow him and step into who we are in him as he is in us, and we become one with him. The snares of this world and the enemy himself. So, Yeshua cleared the way for us to escape all of that. And he is the only way out of the wilderness. We cannot leave the wilderness in our own might, power, or strength. It's only by the Ruach HaKodesh. It's only by, it's only by the strength of Yeshua. It's only by Yeshua's name. He is the only way into the wilderness as we escaped from our Egypt. He's the only way out. And so there's only one way to heaven. There's only one way to the promised land, and he's the only one that can get us there. What's interesting is when Yeshua left the wilderness, he went straight back to Galilee. And I remember a while ago, I was mentioning that Galilee in Hebrew means circle. So it was interesting. Yeshua was in Galilee, got baptized in the Jordan River, went into the wilderness and came back to Galilee. So he too went into a full circle. And Yeshua went in a full circle, as I'm reading from my notes, and went back to where he came from. But this time he was prepared and empowered and came ready for the people to minister. And this is where many are in the wilderness. They're at that place of, depending on where they're at, what level, what is Adonai cleaning and preparing and purifying, whether it be the mind, they're still stuck at level 1. The heart, they're still stuck at level 2. It depending whether, only you know where you are in the wilderness. If you haven't gone into the wilderness yet, I'm going to speak and say, this is what the Ruach HaKodesh told me. Many are about to be saved from the darkness and enter the wilderness to face their tests. There's a harvest that's coming. And so as people are leaving the wilderness, this is the Ruach HaKodesh telling me right now, as a few people will be leaving the wilderness into their promised land, there's a shift up in the realm that's happening right now. And many people that are in darkness are going to come to Yeshua. There is a harvest, but they're going to go straight into their wilderness. So, and it's like everyone's going up a level. People in darkness at Adam are going up to Abraham. People at the Abrahamic level are going up to Isaac. And so the ones that are at the Jacob level are about to go higher and be purified and glorified by going into the promised land with Yeshua. And that's that 5th level, the level of grace. And that's happening this year because the last 2 digits of the Hebrew calendar and the Gregorian calendar is the number 5. So this is the switch up as well. It's also the year of Jubilee. A lot of people are going to be set free from whatever stronghold or temptation they're in that's stopping them from going higher and further with Adonai. They're about to be set free, and Adonai's about to turn it up a notch. He's been telling me this. Some are needing to detach mentally and walk in the unknown of faith, like Abraham. Some need to keep their heart devoted and not give up and keep their heart in heaven, like Isaac. Some need to decide which realm they want to serve and who they want to serve once and for all. Jacob, the soul. Earth or heaven, Adonai or Satan. The world they choose to serve is who they bow down and submit to. Some have passed all 3 tests of the wilderness. Excuse me. Oh, I don't like this. Excuse me. Praise Yeshua. Some have passed all 3 tests of the wilderness and are waiting for that door to open with a seal of approval. So it's the crown. They're waiting for Yeshua to crown them and take them into the wilderness. How Yeshua took them into the wilderness, they're waiting for Yeshua to take them to the promised land. So they're waiting for the seal of approval and to leave the wilderness and to enter their promised land by going back through their Galilee circle and show everyone the glory and crown given by Adonai before the people. These are the remnant of grace elected. So the remnant that we have been talking about are at this level, are waiting for the crown of life and waiting for Yeshua to crown them and to bring them out of the wilderness into their promised land before the people and show the glory and show the royalty to conquer. But they're going back to their Galilee. So many people are going back to their Galilee. A full circle of where they were driven out is where they're coming back in to show Adonai's glory. But this time they're prepared and they have been empowered and strengthened, just like Yeshua. This these are the remnant of grace elected. They're prepared and equipped to knock out the lions, bears, Goliaths, the serpents, the foxes, and all the beasts of the land, and all the ites. For example, I call them parasites, like the Jebusites, the Canaanites, and there's like a whole bunch of ites that's mentioned in the Bible. And I call them parasites because each one of those enemies of Adonai had some sort of parasite contamination of the enemy against the people. And so as we go into our promised land, we will have that power and authority to tread on the serpents, and it doesn't matter about the poison, it's not going to affect us, but we will be able to deal with all the parasites in the promised land, if that makes sense. Because when Yeshua went back to Galilee, he started healing and delivering people from their parasites, whether it be the mind, heart, body, soul, spirit. He had that spiritual power and authority to heal, deliver, do miracles, and deliver people from demons. And it was removing the parasites out of people. And so the remnant of grace, they're about to go into the promised land. We have this power to do just that, and that is so powerful, but we're mature enough to handle such power. Hallelujah. Once Yeshua completed the process himself, then his disciples were added. And I know a lot of people, Adonai was showing me that they're in their cave, they're isolated, they're waiting. Well, Adonai is saying that he's saying that when you complete the process yourself, because it's a journey that you do yourself, no one can do it for you and no one can get you out of there but he himself. Once you finish the process yourself, the friends and people that were in the wilderness are not going to be the same. But when Yeshua came into Galilee and he finished the process himself, then his disciples were added. And so this is what's happening with the remnant, that as soon as we get into the promised land, we've been looking for friends, family, brothers, sisters, because we've left all the past behind. I know I have. And, sometimes we feel like Elijah, I alone am left. But that's not true. We have to go through the process ourselves individually so we can fit in by having the same oil together when we all burn together with Ruach HaKodesh. And then the disciples will be added. And so once we get into the promised land, we will be connecting and it will be added, the brothers, the sisters, the family that we've been wanting, but they're going to be the same platform and the same level of the Ruach HaKodesh as us, people that we can go into ministry with, people that we can go into business with, people that we can call family and to dwell with. And it's going to be like a second census, the Bible, like the first census back in the first covenant was all the people that left Egypt. But then there was a second census before people were about to come into the promised land because the numbers changed. People died in the wilderness. People went back to Egypt. And so the numbers of the people changed. And so it's like whoever makes it to the promised land, those other people will have made it to the promised land too. And we're dwelling in the same land together as people that we can consider friends and family and disciples. And we're going to be working together by building the kingdom of heaven together, just like Yeshua did with the disciples. That it's a cycle here. It's, like Yeshua's paying it forward. He did it first and we're all, following, and people are catching up to that. And so this is the of wisdom, knowledge, and revelation that's being released. And so I believe this is why Adonai has me release this word at this time to help educate people. It doesn't matter how many years you could be a believer, for 1 year or 10 years, but still, not understand the spiritual dimension of things and how does Adonai work. Once you come out of the wilderness, then your disciples, brothers and sisters, will be added and come together. Remember, Yeshua cleared the way of escape, and there is no other way. The enemy tried to steal Yeshua's mind, kill Yeshua's heart, and destroy Yeshua's soul in the wilderness, but did not succeed. Hallelujah. our King Yeshua fulfilled the 40 days with 42 pit stops, the same way the Hebrew Israelites spent 40 years with 42 pit stops. So we have to go through trials and tribulations in order to enter the promised land. 40, 42. There's that reflection. It's a Hebrew meaning, and everything Adonai does is perfect. Yeshua perfected where humans went wrong against the enemy. And this is why we love Yeshua. But this is why also that we look to Yeshua, the perfect Lamb and the perfect King. He fulfilled and perfected the priesthood and the kingship. And if we're going to go by spiritual dimension, the kingship will represent the male and the priesthood represents the female. And so he perfected it for both male and female. He perfected it for both male and female. Because Yeshua is a man and the Ruach HaKodesh dwells in both a male and a female. And so, but it's the physical form of a pure woman is the Ruach HaKodesh. When she has the Ruach HaKodesh, she is the pure element of that spirit realm. And like Yeshua and the Ruach HaKodesh, like I said before, and I'll say it again, they're like Adam and Eve 2.0. So that's the male and female reflection going there. Yeshua did it for everyone. What Yeshua did one time, he didn't do it every year. He did it one time and it was enough for eternity. It opens the way for every generation. Every generation has opportunity, has chances. The Bible keeps going around in a circle. It's eternal. It never ends. It will end when Adonai says it ends. He is eternal. He is also omnipresent. He is everywhere at one time. He is the author of the beginning and the end. The Aleph and Tav, I like to say the Hebrew letters, Aleph and Tav, the beginning and the end. So he is the beginning of the book of Genesis and he is at the end of the book of Revelation. But they're reflections of each other in physical and spiritual realm, FYI. And mind and heart realms. You could call it the cycle of spiritual life. This is like the cycle of spiritual life. The world calls it, the cycle of life. But I call it the cycle of the spiritual life because this is the spiritual way to walk. Okay, there is no other way. Yeshua walks in with you and is the only one to get you out of the wilderness, literally. And the people that choose not to do it or cooperate or settle in the wilderness, they will die. This is the examples that we see in the, what the Hebrew Israelites, when they rejected and they just didn't want to and, progress any forward, they ended up, or coming against Adonai, they ended up just withering away in the wilderness. And it was only those that ran the race of faith, devotion, and commitment, and purity and righteousness were able to enter the promised land. That's why Joshua and Caleb were the two main ones that went into the promised land. Joshua had a pure mind, Caleb had a pure heart. Now, if we're going to, take it literally speaking, that's how a male should be. A pure mind, strong mind like Joshua, the helmet of salvation, and a pure, strong heart like Caleb. Why was Joshua picked as a leader and not Caleb? And I asked the Ruach HaKodesh this, and he said to me, because Joshua was the leader. He had the mindset. The mind is over the heart. But the spiritual truth, so the order of priority is spiritual truth, mind, then heart. Joshua took his orders from Adonai. Caleb supported from the heart, supported Joshua, but Joshua was the in-between of the spiritual realm and the heart and was able to lead the people. So that is an awesome revelation. The Ruach HaKodesh told me to drop it right there. We are not alone. As Yeshua said in John 10:30, I and the Father are one. As we go through the process and preparation to be one with Adonai, our Heavenly Father, Yeshua, and the Ruach HaKodesh, we too will be glorified. we too will be glorified. I and the Father are one. People must decide, do they want to be one with the enemy in agreement and stay in the wilderness, or be one in heaven's accords and side with heaven and enter the promised lands? The choice is yours. Shalom.